We're combining all the best old school wisdom with all the top new school methods to bring you the optimal way to coach and play the great game of baseball. This is the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass with Coach Bo.
Welcome everybody, Coach Bo with you. Man, this week, this episode I'm fired up for. We got Coach Patrick Murphy on here. He's going to share a ton of wisdom for all of you coaches out there. This wisdom goes back to his time at the Little League World Series back in the 90s, all the way up until recent when his team that he helped coach won the national championship for high school baseball. This is an interview I've been excited to do. We recorded it a few weeks ago. Man, I'm excited to bring this to you. So we're going to get into that pretty quickly today. We're going to break it into 3 parts. The interview with Coach Tim Murray that I put out there the last couple weeks, those episodes went a little longer than I would like. I like that 30-minute, 35-minute, 25-minute time frame because I know we're super busy with our time. And while all the information that we had the last 2 weeks from Coach Tim Murray is super usable, it starts getting a little long, and I know that is hard or more difficult to fit into that weekly schedule, that busy weekly schedule that we all have. In today's episode, when we get into the part 1 of the interview with Coach Patrick Murphy, he's going to discuss his philosophy on hitting, this launch angle revolution that he was so far out in front of in terms of youth baseball, high school baseball, college baseball coaches. He was subscribing to it well before it was mainstream, and how he explains how he came about or came across the idea of driving the ball into the outfield rather than just hitting the ball on the ground is fascinating, and it actually makes perfect sense when you hear it. So that'll come up. He also is a huge people first coach. We're big on that here. We're really big on that here. If you want to be successful as a coach, you have to be a people first player, second kind of coach. But in reality, if you're a people first coach, your players are going to get a lot better and you will win a lot of games. You know, on here, we talk about strategies, we talk about tips, we talk about drills, we talk about all that. But at the end of the day, it's super important to instill a foundation of being better human beings and then couple that with skill development and team camaraderie, and boom, you're off and running with a winning player and players. So Coach Murphy's going to share with us why and how he came about with this mindset of being a people first coach. He's going to share some great strategies with that. And you're also going to hear about his experience playing in the Little League World Series. So not only did he just recently win a national championship, high school baseball national championship, his team, Cypress High School, with Coach Murphy on the coaching staff and at the helm, John Weber, one of the best high school coaches in the country, recently just had one of the most dominating seasons in California state history, capping it off with the Southern California Championship in the largest division, Division I. Out here in California, the divisions go the opposite for most states. Most states, the bigger the number, like 5A, 6A, the bigger the schools. Out here, Division I is the biggest or the biggest schools or the most challenging division. Sometimes enrollment doesn't always play into that. But nevertheless, his team that he was coaching won the national title, and he's going to talk about all the things in between there, those stories. He's going to share out a bunch of tips. So we're going to get into that shortly. First, I want to talk about, or I should say first, I want to share with you a quick Babe Ruth quote that I got up on my wall on a canvas. Quote, "Never let the fear of striking out get in your way." This is so huge for the mindset for our hitters. It's more of a life quote, a quote on life. Never let the fear of striking out get in your way. We do not want to coach our hitters so they're up there thinking about not striking out. And in fact, that's built in to plan 2 of our 80-20 baseball hitting approach, how to avoid strikeouts without actually thinking about not striking out. Hitters thinking about, quote, not striking out are far less productive hitters. They're far less productive of hitters. They produce fewer runs. Bottom line, hitters up there that are thinking, don't strike out, they produce fewer runs. They just do. They produce fewer runs. That does not mean that we are trying to go up there and strike out. We are definitely not coaching our hitters to go up there and strike out. In fact, we are trying to avoid the strikeout, but more importantly, we're trying to find ways and trying to go up there with a hitting approach to be productive. What is productivity at the plate? Does that mean a better batting average? Does that mean getting to first base? That's part of it, but that's not the goal. The goal is to score as many runs as possible on offense. The only statistic that matters in baseball is how many runs your team scores and how many runs your team prevents. In other words, how fewer runs can your team give up. Those are the only two stats when it comes to the scoreboard, when it comes to the game that matter. Now, there's a bigger stat, and that is how many of the players on your team had fun, how many of the players, what percentage of the players became better individuals, better human beings under your watch, under your leadership, under your guidance. That's a much bigger statistic when it comes to the overall purpose of youth sports, in this case, baseball. But when it comes to the scoreboard, when it comes to statistics, the only statistics that count, the only two numbers that count, how many runs your team gives up, how many runs your offense scores. Bottom line. So Babe Ruth, his quote, I love this so much I put it on a big canvas up in my office. Never let the fear of striking out get in your way. And one last thing I wanted to share with you. It's interesting find. It was a screenshot that I had saved from 3 years ago from theathletic.com, theathletic.com. I stopped reading The Athletic originally when it came out. It was really good for about a year. And I even had the app, but then it started getting really political. And I was like, I don't want, if I want politics, I'm going to go and get politics. I really wanted sports stories. I wanted really good sports stories. And they had some really good sports stories, some real in-depth coverage, but it got a little political. And so I stopped. But nonetheless, I had this screenshot from The Athletic that I came across in my phone, in my photo album, actually. And here it is. It's from a guy that I knew really well, a guy I played with in college, Jeremy Reed, who went on to have a major league career, a substantial major league career. He played years of outfield for various teams. And Jeremy Reed and I played at Long Beach State. In fact, Jeremy was one of just a couple other players that came in with my freshman recruiting class. It was a very small class. And here was this quote that I took a screenshot of, and it was, well, first off, let me back up. Jeremy Reed's been a hitting coach for the Angels. Back in 2014, actually, he was the Milwaukee Brewers minor league hitting coordinator. And for the Los Angeles Angels, he was their minor league hitting coordinator 2017, 2018. And in November 2018, he was promoted to be the Angels major league hitting coach. So Jeremy knows some hitting and knows baseball. And here's one of his quotes. And I'm going to be quick with this, and then we're going to get to the interview. He said, quote, I think we preach the message of getting a good pitch to hit and hitting it hard. Now he goes on after that to say it sounds so simple. There's more to it, but the message is very ingrained in our young players to what we believe in and what we expect. We preach, back to his original quote, Jeremy Reed, the hitting coach for the Los Angeles Angels, I think we preach the message of getting a good pitch to hit and hitting it hard. They're preaching a message of get a good pitch to hit and hit it hard. Now, with 2 strikes, that isn't always the case, but with less than 2 strikes, a good pitch to hit and they're hitting it hard. So you can see the philosophy we have here at 80-20 Baseball, the hitting plan A, plan 2, and then plan take. But the main two are plan A and plan 2, plan A being with less than 2 strikes, plan 2 being with 2 strikes. The approach at the plate. This doesn't necessarily talk about swing. We don't get into swing and things like that. You could say, hey, be on time at least for the fastball and then work from there. But you got to get a good pitch to hit, and you want to hit it hard. This does not mean swinging 110%. This means just hitting it hard. You're not trying to just put it in play with less than 2 strikes. Get a good pitch. You're not up there protecting the strike zone, swinging at strikes with less than 2 strikes. You're not up there swinging at strikes. I heard that the other day on a major league broadcast. They're up there. They got to be swinging at strikes. I'm like, no, hitter's job's not to swing at strikes with less than 2 strikes. Their job, because they just can't cover that whole strike zone. There's no way. And in Little League and youth baseball, there's definitely no way a hitter can cover that consistently without being a very unproductive hitter. Jeremy Reed said it perfect. Get a good pitch to hit it hard. And you could say the Angels on offense have not been that bad. Their pitching has, they don't really have much pitching, but they definitely have some hitters coming up and doing some good things. And I really like their philosophy at the plate. And I think they're getting a lot out of the hitters that they have. It'd be nice if they could get some pitching to go with it. But nevertheless, thought that was really good. Speaking of hitting, we're going to get into that right now with Coach Patrick Murphy. I am now going to splice in part 1 of our interview you. Here we go. All right. I'm here with Coach Patrick Murphy. Coach Murphy and I have coached together. We coached together a while back, but I had a great experience with Coach Murphy. And when I was thinking of coaches that I wanted to bring on and let you listeners hear from, Coach Murphy was at the top of the list. And I didn't want to bring on any coaches that I couldn't vouch for. I can't vouch for. And, I had Coach Tim Murray on, and now I'm having Coach Murphy on. And Patrick is one of those coaches that is a people first coach. And when I think of this movement in the baseball community of being more people first and more people centered as with our coaching, Coach Murphy is one of the first names that pops into my head right away. And I go, nobody's been a bigger advocate of this that I've seen out there. And with that said, Coach Murphy, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's good to catch up with you again, Bo.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be on here, and I'm excited. Before we get into some of these questions that we have, maybe you could fill in the listeners on a little bit of your backstory and coaching career and how you got to where you are now.
You got it. I've been Orange County, born and bred, and went to school here at Cypress High School, went to Chapman University, and got into coaching really young. I was a player that kind of peaked early. I played in the Little League World Series. I was one of those guys that grew real big early and was bigger and stronger than players when I was younger than when I was in high school. I was a decent all-league player in high school, but just didn't project into Division I baseball. So I played Division III baseball at Chapman University and got into coaching really young. Been coaching for 24 years. I've had a couple great stops along the way. Most recently at Cypress High School in 2019, we were awarded the Perfect Game National Championship after winning the Division I title here in Southern California. So been a lot of places. I've learned from a lot of people and really enjoyed my experiences on the baseball field.
Well, I know you have a long history, because we know each other personally. I know you have a long history of coaching, and you're just a baseball person. You're a baseball guy. And that to me is definitely somebody I want to bring on here. You're a person first coach, and then this background of yours, the Little League World Series, and then you're all league in high school, and then you go to Chapman and Chapman University. You said Division III, but Chapman University is, anybody who follows college baseball knows that the divisions can be very misleading because there is really good baseball being played and guys and players getting drafted and picked up from NAIA and junior college. There's good baseball at every level of college, and Division III baseball is no different. And Chapman University is a perennial top 25 national team, and it's a very high quality program based out of the middle of Orange County, and also a very good institution, a very nice college to go to. You got 24 years of coaching. Wow. And you were a national. I watched that game when you guys won the national title. I watched the whole game. It was live on TV. I saw you on there looking all sharp in your pullover. And man, you guys were awesome in 2019. You and Coach Weber over there, you guys were dominant. I mean, literally in Southern California, I think you guys were like 31-2 or 3. I don't know. It was an amazing record. It was something like right in there, just a crazy good record against just amazing competition. So I got to brag a little bit about it for you. You're a humble guy. And this Little League World Series, I got to go back to this. I don't know if you've ever told me about this. Tell me about your Little League World Series experience.
Yeah, 1990 Cypress Little League. We had, just a kind of lucky situation where a bunch of good athletes ended up at the same team at the same time. We had a young man that was nationally, hitting 40 home runs in Little League and nationally one of the best players in the country, and just kind of a group that came together. And certainly no one saw that coming. Our Little League the year before had lost the first 2 games that they played. So for us to put a run like that together was a really special time. And those guys, as you might imagine, even though I'm, in my mid 40s here, those guys are still some of the best friends I have in the world. You just go through an experience like that at a young age and you form a bond that not a lot of people can relate to. So it was pretty fun. We made it out there. I hit a home run in the first game, and the second game we played, it rained all week. So back then they didn't have lights. They didn't have all these double elimination, all these teams. There was 8 teams that came, 4 from the United States. And we ended up playing in the United States Championship game against a team from Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. And, Williamsport is in Pennsylvania. So it was an amazing atmosphere, just incredible. We jumped out to a 3-0 lead, and they ended up coming back and beating us 5-4 United States Championship. Yeah, it was a pretty amazing experience.
Oh, wow. That just got better and better. The Little League went 0-2, so they were 2-Q, 2-out the year before. And then you guys go to the Little League World Series. And I know a lot of the listeners maybe don't watch the Little League World Series, haven't watched it, but that was something. And I know it's still big and it's on TV every year and it's a big deal on TV. But back in the mid 90s and even the 80s, but I remember the midnight. I didn't miss a game. And I was a junior high kid. I was a Little League kid, but I watched every Little League World Series game. You guys made it to the U.S. Championship game. And in fact, you almost won the U.S. Championship. There's like so many thousands and thousands and thousands of Little League teams, all-star teams every year competing. And you guys made it to the championship game. That is awesome. What a cool experience, man.
So how about the arrogance of this move? We had, if we won on Saturday, we were playing the World Championship game on Sunday against Chinese Taipei. And our typical pitcher-catcher rotation was those guys just flip-flopped every game back then. And we didn't want, this is the story, as I was told as a 12-year-old, the starting pitcher that we had for Sunday, they didn't want him to catch on Saturday because he was a really talented pitcher, and they wanted him to be fresh for the Sunday game. So he played third. I usually played third. I moved to short. Our shortstop moved to catcher. And I think all three of those moves were a mistake. Our catcher didn't play well. I didn't play great. Our third baseman wasn't ready. And we never got to the championship game. So I think a lesson I learned when I was 12 years old is to win the game in front of you.
What a great point you make. Win the game in front of you. You know, if you guys had won the game, then the coach would have been in the Orange County Register, the paper, the main paper for Orange County area in Southern California. They would have called him the next John Wooden.
Yeah, but we had, I talked about the young man that hit 40 home runs. His name was Bobby Burrito. He was drafted by the Red Sox in the 5th round, hit over 500 in high school 3 different times. I mean, this guy was the best high school hitter I've ever seen. And Damon Katz was one of our players that played in the Braves organization. So we had a lot of really talented players.
You know what? It always seems that those Little League teams, you said you kind of got on a lucky roll, but it seems like every year, if you follow up with those teams, there's really good talent on those teams. And usually it's some talent, some luck, some bounces, sure, but definitely some gamers. I always find that it's the kids, a bunch of real competitors, because you got to compete. You got to win. I don't know. I'm guessing it's probably like 20 games somewhere like.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I think we went 21-2.
Yeah, you got to win 21. Yeah. So you got to win 22 or 21 games to get to the championship game of the U.S. Championship. So you can't have off games. And for me, it kind of seems like the biggest factor in that is, being competitive. Yeah, there's the luck and some of the health issues, but when it comes to just out there on the field, just competing every game, because that competitiveness usually doesn't waver. I played with Jared Weaver at Long Beach State, Jared, and I played with Jared Weaver at Long Beach State, and somebody asked me, I was playing with him, or after, I said, what do you think about him? I said, well, his delivery is a little funky. He doesn't really work out very hard. He doesn't really train very hard. But when he gets out on the mound, oh my gosh, there's nobody that I've ever played with that's 50% as competitive as him. And he won 150 games in the major leagues. You win 100, you make it to the major leagues, you're a stud. You win 150 games. That's incredible. And when you think about all the kids that start playing baseball when they're in Little League and to get to that point, and he was competitive. He was very athletic and he was competitive. So, but that competition, so that kind of comes to mind. But all right, so let's get into the first question I got. I'm excited to hear. I know you've shared with me a little bit about this. I'm excited to hear from you. And I know I'm telling you, listeners, you're going to want to stay tuned here and listen to what Coach Murphy has to share. First question I have here is, this was about 2014-ish. It doesn't really matter exactly the date, but it was in that ballpark. We were coaching together. And I remember at the time, and still even a little bit today, but even then, and definitely back in the 90s and 2000, early 80s, it was don't hit the ball in the air, keep the ball out of the air, don't hit it in the air. And you just heard that a lot. I heard it from so many coaches and even Hall of Fame coaches. And, it was don't hit the ball in the air, stay out of the air. Like it was something you just wanted to avoid at all costs. And I just remember you being the first coach that said, hey, hitting the ball in the air is not a bad thing. Now, you were obviously not talking about hitting pop-ups and lazy fly balls. And I thought, well, okay. And it piqued my interest. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on, where did you first learn about that? Why did it make sense to you when you first heard it?
I appreciate you bringing that up. For me, like I said, I had gotten into coaching at such a young age that a lot of opportunities presented themselves early. And one of those was to be the pitching coach at Mater Dei High School, which is a nationally known brand. To be the pitching coach at 22 years old at Mater Dei, I dug in. I just dug in and tried to learn as much as I possibly could and tried to offer the players as much as I could. And one of the things that we really tried to do as a staff was to get the other team to hit the ball on the ground. For me, as I transitioned and learned more about different aspects of the game, it was always in contrast, the idea that I wanted you to hit the ball on the ground. And you're telling me you want to hit the ball on the ground? You're doing exactly what I want you to do. Kind of the dichotomy there was confusing for me. So I've just kind of always thought that cue was probably not something I wanted to align myself with. And then as I continued to learn more and more about other coaches in the country, I think it was probably Dan Hefner at Dallas Baptist that was real vocal about what he was teaching and what he was doing and how it was different and exit velocities and angles off the bat and what he was trying to do with his guys. And I think for me, like this, the youth coaches have taken it in a different direction, like what you kind of prefaced there, was people are popping the ball up or hitting it in the air thinking the idea is to hit fly balls, which is the complete opposite of what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say don't hit it on the ground. But that would mean more, again, back to Coach Heathner, I think I've heard him say the idea is if you can, in the college level, hit a ball at 95 miles an hour or more between 15 and 20 degrees off the bat, then you're going to be, that's the optimal number for success. So I'm not talking about sky balls. I'm talking about getting it off the ground, because if the other guy wants me to hit it on the ground, it doesn't make sense for me to hit it there. I'm comparing it to other sports like Steph Curry. If Steph Curry's the best 3-ball shooter in the history of basketball, there's no reason for me to pack it in on defense and protect the key. I want to do something to stop him from what he's trying to do. Like same in football. If a football team is like a smash mouth, 3 yards of dust and dirt and everything flying, they're just trying to hammer it up the middle. There's no reason for me to have 5 defensive backs. The idea in baseball that the pitcher wants you to hit it on the ground and the hitting coach wants you to hit it on the ground just never made sense to me.
Wow. You're trying to have opposite outcomes with a pitch. The hitting coach, the hitters should want to do the opposite of what the pitching staff wants to do, the opposing pitchers want to do, or at least the goal, right? So if it doesn't make sense, they're trying to prevent runs and you're trying to score runs, but then you're both trying to do the same process.
There you go. And
you're right. Wow. I love how we've talked about that maybe back in episode like 30. I broke down some deductive reasoning when coaches or youth coaches are listening to baseball podcasts or reading books or listening at conferences. That has to add up. Things got to add up. In fact, I think it was like in episode 55, we talked about things got to add up. And for you, it just didn't add up.
That's right. I'm okay with like an external cue. You got a guy that just dumps the barrel and he's popping the ball up sky high. He can't figure out how to get on plane with the pitch. And your external cue is beat an infielder. Beat an infielder. You want to keep the ball head high and you're going to beat an infielder. I can get behind that. But hey, pound the ball on the ground as hard as you can. I can't buy into that.
Yeah, and you make a great point. Like I was talking about just right before that was we're not talking pop-ups. We're not talking lazy fly balls. You're talking about driving the pitch. And we broke this down in a recent episode. It was where I said, well, one of the things that also kind of made sense to me when I heard that, okay, first off, I heard it first from you. And then I was like, wow, it piqued my interest. So since it's been probably 6, 7, 8 years since I heard that from you out on the field, talking with the coaching staff. And so I went back and I started looking in and I heard somebody say, well, there's a lot more area. There's a lot more square yards of grass and field in the outfield. And there's only 3 outfielders. Yeah, they have more reaction time because they're further away from home plate. But if a ball is hit hard, you're talking the difference between it. Maybe they have an extra second versus an infielder, maybe an extra 2 seconds, but they have a lot more range and a lot more area to cover. And I thought that made sense too. And you're seeing some major league teams and a few teams, in the college ranks that are putting 4 outfielders. I don't know how that's going to shake out. I don't know what the data says on that in terms of reducing runs, but it made sense that, yeah, you're right. Because if you hit the ball hard into the outfield, it seems like a lot more balls fall hard line drives in the outfield than hard ground balls in the infield seem to get gobbled up. And especially as players get a little older. Yeah. Is that kind of where you're at with that kind of thinking?
Yeah. I just think if you're teaching your kids to hit the ball on the ground because the other team might make an error, I don't think that that's the productive way to go about it. I think you're trying to hit the ball so that you can get a hit. You want to try to hit the ball so that you can be productive. You're trying to hit the ball so that you can do damage for your offense. Just hit the ball on the ground because, there's bad hops on the ground and the other team might miss the ball. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me for producing good hitters over the long stretch.
Yeah, and it's also assuming that they catch everything in the air and that every line drive gets, balls fall in the outfield, they get misplayed, bad read, a bad angle, and balls fall in the outfield. That's a great point. That's one of the things that really struck me about you, Patrick, was that you're a thinker and you put your ego aside. Young coaches, and youth coaches aren't even young. Youth coaches, you're in most of the listeners, Coach Murphy, on this are between about 30 and 50. So you got a lot of dads. You got a lot in the 30-year-old, 40-year-old, a lot of 40-year-olds. And the thing is, one of the biggest messages I try to give them is you got to be open-minded. And the baseball world has been around a long time, and a lot of it works. And a lot of the stuff that was done in 1950 still works today. But there's also a lot of stuff that we could probably improve and I say optimize. What I like about you so much, one of the many things is that you're open-minded. reminded you, put your ego aside. Young coaches, we need to put our egos aside if we want to grow. And you're 22 years old at Mater Dei High School. And I think I talked about Mater Dei High School recently, and it's one of the most well-known Catholic schools in the country. Their football team is always at the top of the rankings. They've been national champs for many years. And their baseball team they're really quality baseball team, quality athletic department across the board. Probably one of the top 5 high school athletic departments in terms of production and quality and players that come out of there and championships in the whole country. And you're 22 years old and you get there and you could have been like, oh, I'm the pitching coach. I'm a coach at Mater Dei High School, walking around. And I've seen Mater Dei High School coaches over the years walk around, they're the top dog. You're 22 years old and you were still like, I got a lot to learn. I want to learn. And that says a lot. And so you're a youth coach listening to this, which is most of our listeners are youth coaches. And we do have some pro coaches and college coaches and high school coaches, but mostly it's youth. You don't have the experience like Coach Murphy, and he's telling you and telling us that he's, humble and is like, I need to learn. Well, then I think that just says that, hey, that just goes to show you that we all should be open-minded and also question things if it doesn't add up like the ball in the air. You've been following, well, I guess as we record this, or as we're recording it, it was last week, but when this goes live, will probably be a month out. But the Joey Votto, he hit like 7 home runs in 7 straight days. And he missed the MLB record by like mere inches on that 8th straight game of hitting home runs. And yeah, that was probably his best hit of all those. And it didn't go out. He hit the very top of the wall. And I tell my listeners, I say, hey, you should be teaching hitters to drive the ball into the gaps, hitting the ball hard down the line. Just hitting the ball hard line drives and really thinking, have them drive the ball off the fence. I think if they drive the ball hard off the fence, that kind of, like you said earlier, mental cues are going to be a little different for each player, right? So you may not tell that to all your players, but the idea of driving the ball off the outfield wall, that's kind of the mindset I try to tell coaches. That's ideal. It doesn't work for every player, so you got to kind of adjust, but that's kind of what we're looking for. But did you read that Joey Votto said, he's trying to hit home runs? Did you see that or no?
I saw that, yeah. He said, what's the difference? What have you changed? And he said, this year I'm trying to hit home runs. Yeah, I saw that. What's
your take? What do you think he meant by that? I'm assuming he seems like doesn't seem like a guy he's not really a comedian. He seems like a pretty straightforward guy. Do you think, did you read into that anything or?
I could take this in a totally different direction here and talk too much, but
go for it.
One thing about like trying to do anything is I'm off of it. Like I don't want like the idea of trying to do anything is something that I think even if it's the right thing that you're trying to do, that you are losing fluidity, you're losing, your external focus, you're getting internal and you're putting yourself in a weird place mentally. But I think what he meant is he was trying and making an effort to deliberately drive the baseball. Where if you look at his history, he was a big OPS guy, but he's walking and taking pitches and taking fringe pitches he probably could have hit. And this year, he was a little bit more spread out. He's a little bit more choked up. This year, he's a little bit taller. His leg kicks a little bit higher. He's landing a little bit more aggressively. I mean, he's intentionally trying to hit the ball harder or making an effort to hit the ball harder. And good things are happening for him. So I'm happy to see guys like, you just kind of talked about, which I appreciate because it's a big part of who I want to be, is just continuing to learn and being in it for this long and feeling like I have such a far way to go. But when you look at a guy in the big leagues that says, hey, I'm at the big league level, but I haven't figured it out yet. And I think I'm going to try this. And I think I'm going to go in this direction. And to see him make changes at the most elite level there is pretty darn impressive. So I'm happy for him.
Absolutely. I think something in life that keeps people, I think one of the biggest recommendations I can make for anybody, and I feel when you get to 40, I'm 40 now, and I feel like, okay, I can maybe share a little bit of what I know, which isn't very much. And I have so much more to learn. But I feel like one thing that I've learned is if you want to make your life a lot more fun, you want to make your job a lot more fun, you want to make coaching a lot more fun, go out there and try to seek to learn and get better. Because it's always like you're never content, you're never complacent, you're never just, you've never arrived. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be in the moment, present, enjoying where you're at when the sun's hitting you and the game's going on and just feeling blessed that you're out there. But to go out there and always looking to improve, I feel like that can motivate coaches, people in their jobs, in life, just to continue to be excited about what's in front of them and moving forward and kind of optimizing their life. I find that works really well for me. I don't know if that's something that works I feel like it would probably work for everybody, just in terms of, I've been teacher a long time. And as you know, and I'm pretty excited about my job all the time. And people, hey, how do you stay excited? You've been doing this a long time. Well, I'm always trying to get better. I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to get a little better. So it kind of like, it's like a little bit of a game. How can I help serve these students better? How can I impact more lives? How can I teach this concept of health education better. I know we could go on and on about the hitting. I think what you said there. Oh, and the last thing I want to say about Joey Votto is I did preface in a couple, would have been, well, it depends on when this one goes live, but it was in a few episodes back where I said, hey, and all your kids aren't Joey Votto. And so if you're telling, and the cue, which is a great point you made, Patrick, is if you tell a kid, hey, go try to hit home runs, that may work for a couple of your kids in the lineup, and it may just destroy 3 of your kids' production at the plate.
Yeah, I think
that allows them.
What's interesting about Joey Votto specifically is if you look it up, you could find this video where a couple of years ago he was just really kind of against this. I hated using the term, but the whole get the ball off the ground became a launch angle conversation. And he was talking about this great video of him talking about how the players in the big leagues are the best players in the world. And that, Mike Trout come watch him take batting practice. He could hit a ball to left field if he wants over the fence. He could hit to right field over the fence. He could hit it down the right field line. He does unusual athletic things that most people cannot do, and that they're the best players in the world, and they have this ability. And while he's saying this, he's somehow overlooking the fact that he's one of the best players in the world, and that he could do these things too. And somewhere between that conversation and this season, he's realized, you know what? I can do this. Let's go.
Yep. And that's really a cool observation that you made in the statement about this guy's been in the major leagues a long time. He's massive contract, very successful, and he's still wanting to learn and tinker a little bit. He's not making huge overhauls, but he's making a slight change, I should say, not overall, but a slight change to his approach and just looking to optimize. All right, that's going to wrap up part 1. We're at that 30-minute mark, and I want to wrap it up there. We got some good stuff coming next week on part 2. Coach Murphy is going to dive in deep to being a better coach because you're going to become more of a people-first coach. We dive into that at the beginning of next week's episode. The only thing Coach Murphy's a bigger proponent of than scoring a lot of runs, and not giving up a lot of runs, is being a people-first coach, coaching people, relationships, rapport, buy-in. He's going to get into all that and share a lot of wisdom next week with all of you here on the 80/20 Baseball Masterclass. Hey, speaking of 80/20 Baseball, go over to 8020baseball.com if you haven't read all the articles, watched all the videos. There's a ton of good stuff over there. Go check it out, 8020baseball.com. And we got our first coaching product available, Rules Guide. It's a complete rules policy. This is something that a lot of coaches will email me and ask me, what are the rules I should have? What are the consequences? How severe should the consequences be? What should I care about? What should I not care about? I lay it all out. It's a print and use, ready to go PDF rules policy. It has everything you need to have a rules policy, a rules plan in place moving forward. And it also comes with the support. You can email me any questions, any follow-up. And as a bonus to that, I'm throwing in a 25-page team culture guide, how to build a better team culture. It's got stuff from the podcast, and it has a lot of stuff that we haven't discussed on the podcast. It's loaded with tips and strategies. It's got tons of stuff. It's a bonus. I should say it's probably a limited time bonus because it's a pretty good size PDF that I'm giving away. And you can get that right now over at 8020baseball.com, ready to go. My whole idea was you guys are all busy with your jobs. You guys are experts in a lot of different fields. You come to me, you come here, you want the expertise. You listen to Coach Murphy today. You want the expertise from the people that are immersed and in the trenches of the baseball community, but you also want it ready to use. You want it ready-made in a lot of ways. I get it. We all love those kind of products and things like that. And so a big part of what I'm going to be putting out in terms of the stuff on the website are things that are already ready to go, throwing programs, warm-up guides. And I'm going to put out a drill video guide that's got all my best drills out there so you can just go out and use them right away without having to spend 30 years, 35 years, 25 years in baseball to figure all this stuff out. You can go out there with top-notch stuff, top-notch procedures, routines, drills from day one. And of course, there's a learning curve, and putting it in doesn't just come overnight, but you're going to have it in hand, ready to go. What works, a proven way to do it, a proven way to coach and be successful. So go check that out, 80/20 Baseball. It's got Apple Pay and Google Pay. It's ready to go. I'm trying to make it as easy for you coaches to be successful. And if you wouldn't mind leaving a review on your podcast app, a review or a rating to help support this podcast, that would be awesome as well. Thank you guys for being here. Look forward to seeing you back here next Tuesday when the next episode comes out. And until then, take care of your health. Take care of your families like you're already doing. I know you are. Take care of those families and take this information. Go out there and use it in the baseball community. Use it with your team. Use it with your player. Use it with your kids. And until next time, adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.